Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Lost in the Reel. I was lucky enough to attend the 2021 TRIBECA Film Festival online, and I have 14 new films to talk about and rank today. I was able to see an array of movies in so many different genres, many of which were really good, but as with all film festivals, there were certainly a couple of stinkers. So, let's get to ranking. Of my ranking videos, I have 7 different tiers that I will rank these films in. Starting at the bottom, we have worst of the worst, then very bad, meh, just okay, very good, amazing, and the coveted spot of masterpiece. I will go over each film in the order in which I saw them at the festival. There were a couple of movies that did play at the festival that I've already seen, like My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To, How It Ends, and I Carry You With Me, all of which already have reviews on my channel if you want to check those out. But those movies will not be a part of this ranking. This will only be movies I saw directly at TRIBECA. At the very end, I will move the films on the tier list around so we can see what the very worst film was all the way to the very best. Okay, let's get started. The first film that I saw was called Poser. The movie follows Lennon, who exists timidly on the sidelines of the thriving Columbus, Ohio indie music scene, who decides to make a podcast where she finds inspiration for her own musical ambitions and a growing sense of misdirected identity. Enter Bobby Kitten, an enigmatic, striking, and talented half of a popular indie pop duo who takes Lennon under her confident wing, unwittingly entangling herself in a dark obsession. Poser is a very stylish film. It has an eclectic array of music and tons of appearances from local Columbus bands and 2 divine performances from its leads. While it works as a character study on obsession, the thriller aspect of the last act of the film did not work for me. Our lead character of Lennon did not have enough of a progression to get to where she is at the end, at least in my opinion. I also wish they had delved deeper into the commentary on society's obsession with famous people a little bit more. But the intoxicating nature of the story and the way in which it was filmed makes it a slight recommendation from me, so I think it belongs in the just okay tier. Next up is See For Me. When blind former skier Sophie cat-sits in a secluded mansion, 3 thieves invade for a safe hidden inside. Sophie's only defense is Army veteran Kelly, who she meets on the See For Me app. Kelly helps Sophie defend herself against the invaders to survive. So this one was a huge surprise for me. See For Me is a taut, intense thrill ride that has an absolutely incredible and ingenious setup with the whole app to help you see that really makes it stand apart from others in the genre. Also, I love the representation in this film. The lead actress is actually visually impaired, so it added a layer of authenticity to the movie as a whole. The only thing that held this back was that the lead protagonist was a bit unlikable. Still, this is one of the best home invasion thrillers I have seen in years. I keep going back and forth with this, but I think that it belongs in the very good tier for now. Oh boy, the third film I saw at the festival was Asking For It. Here we go. After small-town waitress Joey is sexually assaulted after a date with her old friend Mike, she befriends mysterious stranger Regina, who introduces her to the Cherry Bombers, an all-female gang. All of whom are suffering from past traumas. Together they fight a misogynistic society. So this movie has a really talented cast with Alexandra Shipp, Ezra Miller, Kiersey Clemens, Vanessa Hudgens, Gabourey Sidibe, Luke Hemsworth, and Radha Mitchell. And I love the idea of seeing a group of diverse vigilante women giving the douchebags and garbage humans of the world what is coming to them. but holy hell, this is one of the most sloppily directed and edited films I have seen in a very, very long time. Also, I'm not gonna lie, I am really confused as to why a white male wrote and directed this story about female empowerment against men. I think a female eye would have done this story much more justice. I do think that the thought and the heart were there though, but the execution was just not. Honestly, asking for it is an unmitigated disaster. So, it's going in the worst of the worst here. Next up is a movie that I have already reviewed, so I won't go into too much detail about it, but that is We Need to Do Something. A family on the verge of self-destruction finds themselves isolated in their bathroom during a tornado warning. As I said in my review, although this psychological horror film does not come together cohesively in the end, it is nonetheless a nasty, insidious ride that will surely become a huge hit in the midnight movie circuit, so I will be putting We Need to Do Something in the very good tier. I'm really excited for people to see this one and to hear their thoughts, because it's definitely going to be divisive. It will be released by IFC Midnight on September 3rd in the US. The fifth film that I saw was God's Waiting Room. The movie is a drama that takes place in the thick heat of Central Florida. Rosie, a musician fresh out of high school, can't shake her boredom. Before long, she meets Jules, a hustler from New York. She falls hard for his streetwise charms and his easy confidence. On the other side of town, Brandon returns home after a decade in prison, but his transition to life on the outside is dogged by the scars of his past. The summer drags on, pushing these three characters together down a dangerous path. God's Waiting Room is a visually pleasing and, once again, stylish film that I could gaze at all day, but nearly everything else here was lacking significantly. God's Waiting Room is the definition of a film operating at a glacial pace. For a debut feature, I absolutely am impressed by Tyler Riggs' directorial vision, but the screenplay needed a lot of work. The director plays one of the leads, and his connection to the story is so obsolete for most of the movie that when he did come into play, it just didn't come together for me. I should also note that the other male lead in the film, Matthew Leone, who plays Jules, won the Best Actor in a Narrative Feature at the festival, and I think deservedly so. He was outstanding here, adding so much depth to a script that did not do him any favors. So I will be putting God's Waiting Room in the meh tier. Such a beautiful film, but not much else there, unfortunately. Next up, I saw False Positive, which I also have a review for up on my channel, but it stars Ilana Glazer, Justin Theroux, Sophia Bush, Gretchen Mol, and Pierce Brosnan. It follows Lucy and Adrian, who, after months of trying and failing to get pregnant, finally find their dream fertility doctor in the illustrious Dr. Hindle. But after becoming pregnant with a healthy baby girl, Lucy begins to notice something sinister through Hindle's gleaming charm, and she sets out to uncover the unsettling truth about him. So I was definitely expecting more from this one. With the creative team involved, I was hoping this would be a bit more refreshing, unique, and weird. And also, not predictable. But Ilana Glazer is phenomenal in the lead role, proving she is certainly more than a one-trick pony. The film is also crafted to perfection and is at least effectively unsettling, so I will be putting False Positive in the just okay tier. You can find out what you think of the film this Friday, June 25th, as it will be streaming exclusively on Hulu. The seventh film that I saw was The Novice, which won the TRIBECA Grand Jury Prize for Best Narrative Feature and Best Actress for Isabel Fuhrman, who was the little girl in the horror movie Orphan. The film follows Alex Dahl, a queer college freshman who joins her university's rowing team and undertakes an obsessive physical and psychological journey to make it to the top varsity boat, no matter what the cost. Intent on outperforming her teammates, Alex pushes herself to her limits and beyond, alienating everyone around her in the name of success. The Novice is an absolutely stunning film. The cinematography, the score, the sound design, the editing, it really is masterful. I've seen some people comparing this to Whiplash, and I totally see it, with both movies revolving around a young person obsessed with being the best that they can be in a certain field. It's also interesting to note that the director here worked on the sound design in Damien Chazelle's movie. Isabelle Fuhrman is a revelation in The Novice as well, completely surrendering herself to this very physical and emotionally draining role. I think she definitely has a shot at an Oscar nomination next year for Best Actress. But I just could not find it within myself to connect with her character of Doll at all, and because of that, the movie was never gripping for me. I think it's definitely worth a watch for the craft alone, but I never want to see this movie again because this is a really tough one to endure. And I know a lot of people will crucify me for this because The Novice was on every person's top list for the festival, but for me, it wasn't amazing. It was very good though. Now we will be talking about the sci-fi thriller Ultrasound. After his car breaks down, Glenn spends one hell of an odd night with a married couple, setting into motion a chain of events that alter their lives, plus those of several random strangers. I definitely don't want to give too much away here because you want to go into this film completely fresh and open-minded. But this trippy cerebral mystery absolutely blew me away. Ultrasound is a puzzle that is an absolute blast to piece together, and I cannot wait to put it all back together again. Some people might be turned off by the fact that this is quite a confounding story, but you are in good hands with first-time feature director Rob Schroeder, who has crafted one of the best mindbenders in years. It is meticulously plotted and riveting from start to finish, and I have a feeling this one will get even better upon future rewatches too. So Ultrasound definitely goes in the amazing tier. It does not have a release date yet, but please keep your eyes peeled for it. Next up is the video game adaptation Werewolves Within, starring Sam Richardson and a huge ensemble cast of comedic performers. When a proposed pipeline creates hostilities between residents of a small town, a newly arrived forest ranger must keep the peace after a snowstorm confines the townspeople to an old lodge. But when a mysterious creature begins terrorizing the group, their worst tendencies and prejudices rise to the surface, and it is up to the ranger to keep the residents alive, both from each other and the monster which plagues them. So this is definitely a Shaun of the Dead, Knives Out type movie that mixes dry humor with a tinge of horror and a whodunit vibe. But although I think the ensemble is great and they seem to really be having fun in this film, the only word that could come to mind to describe it for me was stale. The jokes, the jump scares, the script, the direction, it all seems stale to me. I know a lot of people are really liking this one, and I wanted to be on that same page, but the fact that I only lightly chuckled a few times throughout Werewolves Within's entirety really says it all. So it's going to be a big ol' meh for me. But, like I said, some people are loving it and even calling it the best video game adaptation ever, so I might be in the minority here. You can find out for yourself soon, because it will be in theaters this Friday, June 25th, and on VOD the next Friday, July 2nd. The 10th film that I saw was No Running, a thriller mixed with a bit of sci-fi. When a young man's girlfriend mysteriously disappears, he's forced to go on the run, staying one step ahead of suspicious police to clear his name and to find out if otherworldly forces are to blame. So I really wanted to like this one because I think Skyland Brooks has real star potential. He was one of the best parts of Arch Enemy as Hamster, but this whole film did not feel like it was ready to see the light of day. Actually, I think the script probably should have gone through another 10 drafts before they started filming. You can tell the filmmakers are trying to make profound and observant points, but are having extreme difficulties doing so. It also felt really meandering, like it kept going on and on despite being a relatively short feature. The movie has a really interesting concept, but no running could have been so much more. Also, I thought the end was cringeworthy and didn't make a lick of sense. So, I'm sad to say that no running goes in the very bad tier. Next up is the Soul documentary I saw at the festival, aptly titled The Kids. 26 years after indie cult classic Kids was released to an unsuspecting nation, this documentary explores the divergent paths of the original cast, delivering an unflinching look at one of the most iconic films of the 1990s. So, Larry Clark's Kids had a huge impact on me as a teenager, whether I like it or not. This documentary, following some of the kids who were left behind, is a poignant and sobering look on the experiences of before, during, and after the making of the notorious film. There is so much to be explored here, and I really feel like director Eddie Martin didn't even scratch the surface. Of course, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Larry Clark and Harmony Korine, the writer of the original movie who was 19 at the time, refused to participate. And performers like Chloe Sevigny and Rosario Dawson are nowhere to be found here as well. The documentary would have felt like a more complete and satisfying behind-the-scenes look and reflection on Kids if they had all been a part of it. Even so, I am so happy that this movie exists to set the record straight and also give a voice to many of the actors who gave themselves to Clark only for him to exploit them. Despite my small misgivings, this is still a must-watch for anyone who was inexplicably changed by Kids. So, I will be putting the documentary, The Kids, in the very good tier. Next up is the Indian feature, Last Film Show, which follows a 9-year-old boy in a remote village in India who begins a lifelong love affair with cinema when he bribes his way into a rundown movie palace and spends a summer watching movies from the projection booth. Yes, this movie has a very similar plot to the classic and one of my personal favorite films, Cinema Paradiso. But even so, Last Film Show is a magnificent love letter to cinema. Although light on plot, the movie at times feels like a sweeping epic. Our 9-year-old lead protagonist is a precocious, passionate, and rebellious kid who acts as a trailblazer for his small rural community. The young actor who plays him, Bhavin Rabari, is an absolute triumph. He is in nearly every moment of the film, and you cannot take your eyes off of him. He brilliantly captures the fervor and determination of a child who has finally found their calling. The film is also gorgeously shot with moments of such quiet, unadulterated beauty brimming within so many of its frames. A scene where our group of kids are riding their bikes with different colored film reels wrapped around their eyes is just one moment that comes to mind. Some will find Last Film Show to be slow-moving and tedious, but I was transfixed by every second. I really hope that India submits this for the Oscars because I think it has a chance to win. So I will be gladly putting this film in the amazing tier. The second to last movie I saw was The God Committee, which I also have a full review for on my channel, so I will keep this short and sweet. This film has an all-star cast with Kelsey Grammer, Julia Stiles, Janine Garofalo, and Coleman Domingo. Medicine, money, and morality clash when a hospital's heart transplant selection committee has only 60 minutes to decide which of 3 patients on the transplant list will receive a heart that has suddenly become available. Though the film had all of the makings to be a 12 Angry Men-like dramatic thriller, Austin Stark's The God Committee is a frustratingly unfocused piece of work that lacks a sense of urgency and rarely takes advantage of its outstanding cast or compelling plot, so it goes in the meh tier for me. Honestly, this one was a huge disappointment for me, but it will be released in theaters and on VOD Friday, July 2nd, if you want to check it out for yourself. And the final film I saw at the festival is the Darren Aronofsky produced Catch the Fair One. It follows a Native American woman who embarks on the fight of her life when she goes in search of her missing sister. The former boxer intentionally gets entangled in a human trafficking operation in order to retrace the steps of her kid sister and work her way up the chain of command to find the man responsible. Catch the Fair One is a lean, mean little thriller. It has this ferocious rage that is pulsing through its veins. World champion boxer Callie Reese in her first screen performance is so raw and authentic. She balances a gentle softness with this rock-hard exterior of anger that allows the viewer to be at once frightened of her and genuinely empathetic with her. Unfortunately, I was a little let down by the ending, and I think if filmmaker Joseph Kubota was able to wrap this up in a more satisfying way, it would have been an outright masterpiece. But still, this film is a gritty, brutal, and dynamic thriller that had me on the edge of my seat the entire runtime, so I will be putting Catch the Fair One in the amazing tier. So, now that I've gone over all of the movies, I will tweak this tier list a bit so we can define what the very worst film was all the way to the very best. Okay guys, so we are going to start at the very bottom of this list with the worst of the worst tier. We have one film there that is asking for it. This movie was really bad, guys. It's a little embarrassing, to be honest, how bad it is. I think it came in with the right intentions, but it just ended up being executed in such a poor way. It's a jumbled mess, and probably going to end up in the worst of the year for me. So going to the very bad tier, we also only have one film, and that is No Running. Great lead actor in Skyland Brooks, great concept. But this film needed so much retooling with its script. It was very on the nose, and it seemed very, like, it just kept going on and on for me. So, there's a good movie in there somewhere, but we just didn't get it here. So, No Running stays in the very bad tier. Up to the meh tier, I am going to move Werewolves Within to the front of the pack. Like I said, people are really liking this movie, responding well to it. It wasn't for me. I thought it was a little stale, but I think that I had a fun enough time with it, and I did chuckle a few times. So out of all three of these movies, this is probably the one I'd want to watch again most, even though I probably won't ever watch them again. Then I'm going to move The God Committee to the middle of the pack there. This was such a disappointment for me, like I said, but there are some moments of tension, especially when they're in the deliberation room, that were full of tension, but there was just not enough of that. So that's going to stay in the middle of the pack, and then we have God's Waiting Room. To me, this is just a film that is the definition of style over substance. So that's going to be at the bottom of the meh tier. Okay, so going on to the just okay tier, I'm going to move False Positive above Poser. There's a lot to like with this movie. I didn't mention it in the video before, but it's so much like Rosemary's Baby, so some people are going to be off-put by that. Also, with this creative team, this should have been something really special. Once again, it's just okay, but Ilana Glazer does an amazing job moving to a dramatic role and also writing the script. So there's a lot to be excited about here. It's still just okay, but it's going to go above Poser. With Poser, I think this is another kind of definition of style over substance, but I think there's a little bit more here with Poser, and I loved the two leading ladies. I think they could have done more with the plot, and the thriller aspect at the end didn't really work all the way for me, but still a movie that is a slight recommendation from me. So going up to the very good tier, we have 4 films, which is awesome. I am actually going to keep C for me there. I was shocked at how good this movie was. If you love home invasion thrillers, you are going to love this film. It's a really nice, unique, different spin on the genre, so definitely keep an eye out for this one. Moving on, I am going to say We Need to Do Something can also stay there. This one's definitely going to be more divisive than C for me, because of how shocking and how kind of weird this movie is, and also the ending didn't do it for me. But my mouth was agape this whole entire film. It is shocking, it is insane, it is a wild ride, so we're going to keep that there. Then I'm actually going to move the kids documentary above the Novice, because just for me, the kids really kind of changed my life with cinema, at least, and it really had an impact on me, even though the film has a lot of issues. The documentary also has some issues. I would have liked more from it. I think this could have been a 3 or 4 hour documentary to really encapsulate everything that happened behind the scenes on this film. But still, if you have seen Kids and you have been changed by it in any way, this documentary is a must watch. Then we're going to move to the very end of the very good tier with The Novice. Once again, people are loving this film. I liked it a little bit less than most of the people that saw this at the festival, but it's still a movie that you must watch for the craft and Isabel Fuhrman's amazing performance. But this film is just a rough watch, so I will never be seeing it again, but it's still very good. Okay, so now we're going to be going up to the amazing tier, which unfortunately is the last tier we're going to be talking about today, because there was not a single film at this year's Tribeca Film Festival that hit that masterpiece mark, but still we have 3 amazing films to talk about. I am going to move Catch the Fair One to the middle of that pack, because this was so close to being a masterpiece, guys, but it just didn't stick that landing. Still, this is a gritty, brutal, lean little thriller. Callie Reese gives a fantastic performance, and I just think it is a must-watch. And then I'm going to keep Last Film Show at the bottom of the pack there, just because, like I said, it is very similar in its themes and plots to Cinema Paradiso, and I think that movie did do it better. But still, if you are a lover of cinema, which of course you are because you're watching this right now, this is a must-watch. Last Film Show is absolutely gorgeous. So that means Ultrasound is my favorite film of the festival. This movie, guys, is just, if you give it your patience and your full concentration, this film will be so rewarding for you. I really do think Ultrasound is one of the best films of the year. I was absolutely blown away. I cannot wait to watch this film over and over and over again. So, the best films of the Tribeca Film Festival 2021 were Ultrasound, Catch the Fair One, and Last Film Show. And the worst film of the festival, by far, was Asking for It. Thank you so much for watching Lost in the Reel. We will see you soon.